Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in again. I am Kaylee Batesman, the content director at SheCanCode, and in today's episode we're discussing tips and tricks to excel as a woman in tech. You've made it, you've worked hard to achieve your spot in the tech industry, but what next? How can you advance and excel as a woman in the tech sector? Thankfully, I've got the wonderful Ayshea Robertson, People and Culture Director at Zen Internet, with me today to take a look at her career, standing out from the crowd, and tips and tricks to excel in the tech industry. Welcome, Ayshea. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me, Kaylee.
Thank you. Well, can we kick off the conversation today with a little bit of background about yourself, please, to set the scene?
Yes, of course. So, I actually started out my career in finance, which is a little unusual, I think, for HR people.
Yes.
And I fell into finance accidentally, actually, because as a child, I always wanted to be a lawyer, and I think that's because I watched far too much LA Law as a teenager in the 80s. Um, and I really wanted to be a lawyer. I thought it was a really cool job. But unfortunately, I didn't get the grades required at A level to be able to do the law degree at university. So I decided I would take a year out instead and do some work with every intention to go back to uni a year later. So I started off doing some accounts in a small law firm in the town that I lived at. Um, and I really enjoyed being independent, getting money, being able to go on holidays, buy nice clothes, and developing myself within actually a working role. So I thought, oh, do you know what? I don't want to go into full-time education again. I'm just going to build my career and develop whilst I'm actually in a role. So I started to do that. I took some like accounting exams, etc., and worked my way up a little bit into like a finance manager's role. And then I thought, oh, do you know, this is a bit dull. I'm sick of spreadsheets and numbers. Um, it's not really exciting me at all. So I landed a job that was a bit of a dual HR and finance role. And then I thought, oh, this people part is really exciting. It's very interesting dealing with people and different characters and, how you can help them. So I thought, right, okay, I'm going to ditch the finance altogether and I'm going to go into HR. So that's exactly what I did. I then got my professional HR qualifications and I did a master's degree in HR whilst I was working full time as well, which was quite an achievement at the time. Um, and then I started working up the career ladder in various different jobs and sectors. So I moved around a little bit. I've got experience in multiple sectors. So I've been in the legal sector for a couple of times now. I've been in financial services, manufacturing, construction, obviously technology and telecoms most recently. So I've been here and there, and all of my moves have been for progression opportunities. And I found it really interesting actually moving around sectors and getting to know about the challenges that the businesses face and how I could help with that. Um, so yeah, I've learned a lot along the way, as you can imagine, and there've been various challenges, particularly when working in the more male-dominated sectors like construction, manufacturing, and technology. Um, and it can be really challenging being the only female voice on a leadership team. Uh, you really have to work on your confidence. Um, and I've experienced imposter syndrome a number of times along the way as well. And that's one of the reasons, why I really care so passionately about gender equity and getting more women into these unrepresented sectors like technology. And I guess some of the biggest learns I've had as well along the way is about taking ownership and responsibility for my own development,
Yeah.
and driving my career forward myself, because nobody else is going to do it. Um, so, and also proactivity and resilience have been key for me. So if you get a knockback, you should definitely reflect and learn from that, but then move forward. Don't let that hold you back.
I love the fact as well that you mentioned that you've moved around lots and lots of different sectors, which is really nice to hear. Because did you think that when you were a student and you went into your first job, did you maybe, a lot of people have the impression that you go into that job and that's it, you tend to stay in that sector, you have to pick your career quite early because it's going to map out the rest of your career path. But actually you're a perfect example of somebody that thought, oh, I'm going to try lots of different sectors.
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't go out with that intention. I guess I found that once I got, and I think this is actually a reflection on my personality as well, as I have this desire to constantly learn more things, and I love change as well. And I like to feel like I'm constantly challenging myself, and I'm given great value. And then once I reach a certain level, I think actually I've plateaued, or I've become a bit comfortable. I think, right, now's the time for another change, another opportunity, challenge myself in a different sector. So I've done that, and it's generally been, I guess, a career progression move. So what I haven't done is I haven't thought I'm going to hang around here until there's a career progression move within this company. I thought, no, the time feels right for me now. So I'm going to look for that opportunity elsewhere. And I've just gone wherever it's taken me, and it's been exciting.
Yes. Yeah. And was there something when you did end up in the tech sector, was there something or someone that inspired you? And you mentioned as a child you'd seen things on TV. You'd been watching things that inspired you to think, "Ah, I'd love to become a lawyer." I've heard that from a lot of young people. I only spoke to a lady yesterday on our podcast. You can't be what you can't see. Was there something about tech where you thought, I'm going to try that one next? You'd mentioned enjoying the people part of your job at one point.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, the main reason I joined Zen was all about the company culture,
Mm.
um, as opposed to the tech sector. But what I found out retrospectively joining in the tech sector was how exciting it was, and how fast paced, and all the opportunities available, and also the chance to actually go in and make a difference and try and change things from a diversity perspective. But in truth, the reason I joined Zen was purely for the culture, and that people first culture, and I knew it would be a fantastic place to work.
Yes, yeah, it tends to be you gravitate towards certain companies, don't you? Because you think that's going to be a great environment for me. Um, why do you think more women should consider a career in technology? You mentioned a few uh, benefits there of the company that you work for, but is there anything you think in particular that would be quite attractive as a sector for women in tech?
Yeah, I think there are loads of great reasons to join tech as a woman. It's a really, as I said before, it's a really exciting and fast-paced sector. There's lots of change happening, and that makes it really, really interesting. And there are great roles available, loads of opportunity. Um, Skills in tech are always in high demand as well, which means that there are good salary packages. Um, and the sector has really embraced hybrid working as well. So that means there's a lot of flexibility out there, particularly if you're juggling childcare, etc. Um, and also in the tech sector at the minute, there is a huge focus on diversity. So not just gender equity across all of the spectrum, which means there's lots more opportunities there, and there's lots more work being done on um, improving benefits, improving packages. And so I think it's a great time for people to be considering a career in tech.
Mm. Yes, definitely. Definitely. I think with all the changes that are happening in tech as well, it can be at the minute tech is a bit tough in terms of what's happening, but there is so much talent that is out there, that is now available to go to the companies, or the good companies that are going to snap up that talent. What do you think our listeners can do to stand out from the crowd, from a HR side? Is there anything that you see and you think, yes, that's somebody that I would definitely remember, and how they can stand out from everybody else?
I think it's really important to keep your knowledge current, and also future focused as well. Because, in this fast paced sector, it's no good like harking back to the past. You've got to be able to demonstrate that you're always forward thinking.
Mm.
So you obviously get that through attending networks and industry events, etc. Um, but for me, it is definitely about standing out, quite showing all elements of your skill set. So not just focus on the technology, look at every other area as well. What else can you bring to the organization?
Do you find sometimes when you say that, is it as if you will talk to somebody and perhaps they don't realize how valuable their skills are? Especially women, we've heard that a lot. They tend to hide their light under a bushel, and you think, and suddenly they come out with a project they've worked on. You think, why didn't you say that previously? It's so valuable what you just said, but perhaps people don't always realize, how sought after their skills are.
Yeah, definitely. And you've got to remember this is your opportunity to showcase everything.
Yeah.
So think of it broadly, and think of, you're telling a story about your career and how you got to where you are. And these are all the wonderful skill sets that you've got. And don't be shy about putting them forward and bragging about them. That's the whole
Mm.
reason that you're in the interview. You've got to demonstrate that.
Yes. And when you get to that interview, do you have any tips for that interviewing styles? Or I suppose if you're a graduate, it takes you a little while to get into the flow of, how an interview should go. It takes practice, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It really does. Um, for me, one of the keys is it's all in the prep. you know um so do your research about the company. Try and understand what the company is all about. If you can, look on the website and find out a bit more about the team you might be interested in. Um, and think about the challenges that that company might be facing, so that when you're in the interview you can demonstrate that you actually care about the role a bit more. um,
Yeah.
and remember, again, the point I made before, remember it's not just about your technical skills. So expand on that. Make sure you mention your other skills like problem solving or collaboration or communication. Really take the opportunity to showcase everything. Um, and make sure you've prepared some questions as well. I always think for me, it really demonstrates how committed or how much somebody really wants a job when they've prepared some really good questions. In particular, if they're asking about the company. So, things like, how would you describe your company culture? I love it when candidates ask me that, because I think, right, okay, they are a little bit interested.
Yeah.
Um, and remember, it's a two-way process as well. So, make sure you ask the questions that you want to know, to help you to make the decision as well.
Yes, yeah, I love that, because I tend to ask uh, the person that's interviewing me, what is it that you love about your job? Because normally it's kind of their
Yeah,
guard goes down and they think, actually, I need to have a think about what I enjoy about my job and why I enjoy working here. And you're right, it is a two-way street, which I think for a lot of us is not something that you think when you first graduate. You're thinking, I just really need a job and I need to get on a
yeah,
team and I need to get some experience. But you're right, as you go through, those questions, they tend to change a little bit, don't they? You're
they do.
wondering whether or not you're going to slot into that culture. Do you think there are certain areas or skills where being a woman offers an advantage? Do you think?
Well, women make up a demographic that can offer a completely different set of experiences. So, of course, I guess, a variety of perspectives is a huge benefit to the business. So, for me, this is about making sure that there is diversity of thought and ideas, and that comes from having representation across all demographic areas, gender, age, ethnicity, and so on.
I think as well, you mentioned something lovely earlier. You said it's not just about the tech skills, which is so right. And I think sometimes we go into an interview and we almost forget that. We're very much sort of these are the qualifications that I have under my belt, and perhaps a lot of us forget to share those soft skills and actually all the things that employers are looking for, not just from women, but sometimes the advantage there is, as you said, there's a unique set of skills that ladies will bring, and employers really want you to be yourself in that way. I've
Yeah.
spoken to many ladies on here who say they get into management roles, and they strangely end up taking on a very masculine style of leadership once they go into a management role. And your employer is thinking, no, I want you to be yourself because you bring diversity to the team, and it's far more than just your technical qualifications in an interview, isn't it? They want to hear all of those other unique skills that you bring as a woman.
Absolutely, because it is all about getting that kind of diversity of thought and perspectives. And I think you're absolutely right about that. I've seen that happen so often, where women progress to leadership roles and feel like they need to change themselves to fit in with the other males on the team. Um, and it is the opposite that a company wants. We want the difference of opinion, the different way of thinking, and we want people to be authentic. So yeah, I would definitely advise any of the listeners not to fall into that trap.
Yes, I love the fact you said authentic there. That is exactly it,
Yeah,
isn't it? Being your authentic self, which isn't always easy to do in the workplace. I think it's
yeah,
easier when you're in a good company that provides you with an environment where you feel safe to be your authentic self. And I suppose
absolutely.
again that's picking the correct culture, really, isn't it? And you said you were
Yeah.
attracted, to Zen Internet because of that culture.
Absolutely, it is. It is. And, there are a lot of great companies out there who do create a safe environment for people and women to progress and be themselves, and well, people in general, not just women. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's another top tip really when you're looking for, um, a company to go to. Make sure you do your research about the culture. That should be one of your key questions I would suggest, so that you can understand whether or not you're going to have that help and support and that voice to be able to develop in yourself.
Yes, I don't. You're right. That research into the company, because you don't always get that from an initial screening interview, for instance, or even when you go through to your first interview, you might not always actually grasp what that culture is like, and
Yeah,
perhaps until you get into the job and you think, actually, I wish I'd done some research and maybe this isn't the place for me. And now you're thinking, do I jump ship or stay here for a year? What do I do
yeah,
now?
yeah. It's a tough one.
How do you think companies can support women in tech? Are there any leadership programs or training budget or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of ways that companies can support getting women into tech. Um, Initiatives such as Step into Tech program that we run at Zen is a
Mhm.
great start. Our program is aimed at women who are looking to make their first move into a tech role. It's a week-long development program. It builds in technical skills and also soft skills like interview techniques, etc. And what we hope is that the women who are on the program feel really inspired to pursue a career in tech at the end. And quite often, we end up actually employing several of the delegates at the end of the program as well. So it's fantastic, and that's been a great success. So that's, I guess, one example. But
I
in
love the fact there, sorry to jump in. I
it's
love
all
the
right.
fact that you said it's a week's program as well, which is
Yeah.
perfect. I've spoken to so many ladies who say, I'd like to try a career in tech. I've heard that, it would be a great way to go. And then you start looking into what's required. And it is such a commitment to have to
Mhm.
take, a 12-week boot camp that is very
Yeah.
expensive. And you think, actually, it's quite a gamble. Am I going to get something out of this? Will I even enjoy it? But a week's program is
Yeah.
perfect just to see, is it for me? You can test whether or not they would make a great employee. There's not that commitment there. It's not like going back to school or committing a lot of money or time, because for a lot of people that's not doable. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And it's free for, we put that on for free. It's kind of our bit to help get women into the technology sector. And it obviously also helps us because we get a lot of talent at the end of it.
Yeah.
And we hope to, inspire people. So that program for us has been a fantastic success, and we do run that regularly. Um, the other thing that we do really well, and that other companies should definitely think about, is we have network support groups.
Mhm.
So it's then we have a Women in Tech group, which has over 50 members, both women and men, who all care really passionately about gender equity. And that group drives actions and initiatives like our Step into Tech program, and other things that we've set up are like female mentoring schemes, female specific development, tackling all sorts of areas. We've revised our policies and procedures, and as well as many other things. So that has been really, really useful for us.
And it's
Um,
great that that includes male allies as well. um
Absolutely.
need everybody involved in that conversation, and you would use the word actions there, rather than it just being a conversation where everybody just gets together and talks
Yeah.
around in circles. Action, people.
Yeah, it was really important for us to do that. I was determined it wasn't going to just be a talking shop and nothing happened. So we've got our own vision, we've got our own objectives, and I report on those to the board. So it is about making a difference for us. Yes, we have the support element of the group as well. So, we can listen to people and any barriers that they may feel are there, and then we can tackle that. But it's important that we actually make a difference and drive things forward.
Yeah.
Something else which we found really useful as well is forming partnerships externally with local schools and colleges to help shape the curriculum and to raise awareness of like roles in tech. And we take some of our female techies out to these schools to demonstrate to the girls in school that these roles are accessible and they're exciting, etc. And we've set up various female work experience programs and mentorships for girls interested in careers in tech. So that has been another huge success for us, and something I think that many companies could do.
Yeah, instead of having that shock when you leave school and you think, oh, this is the world of work, and this is what it's going to be like, this is what the roles actually look like day to day. Yeah, that's a great initiative to kind of bridge that gap. um,
Sorry, one of the key things for me is about having buy-in at the top.
yeah.
Um, and because I'm a member of the executive team and I sit on the board, diversity is owned and discussed at the top, and that means it's driven across the business. So for me, that is another thing that businesses should consider is, that ownership from the top so that it does become a priority.
Yes, definitely, because you're right. If it doesn't trickle down and people don't see it put into action, or even right down to your line manager making a difference, or seeing your line manager, whether they're male or female, leave at a certain time, putting in that boundaries to go and pick up a child or whatever it may be. Somebody needs to be putting those things into action from the top so everybody can see it, and make sure that everybody follows suit as a culture. you're absolutely right. If that doesn't trickle down from the top, then the culture isn't going to be what people say it is on that boilerplate on their website.
Yeah,
Doesn't actually happen.
exactly.
What do you think is the best piece of advice you've been given when it comes to your career? Is there anything that stands out for you?
Yeah, really early on in my career, somebody said to me, you never stop learning. You've got to embrace development and don't be afraid of change. And those three areas have really resonated with me and stuck with me throughout my career. I've always applied it across my career journey, as we were discussing earlier. I do love to keep myself on my toes and learn new things. And I'm definitely not afraid of change. And that for me has really helped me to progress up the ladder in my career and to get to where I am today.
Right at the beginning of this as well, you mentioned taking responsibility for your own learning and development,
Yeah,
which stuck with me as you said it, because yes, it's so important to realize that it's not just the company's responsibility that you're getting. And asking in your interview, is there any training programs, and is there a budget for this and that? That's absolutely fine, but it's also your responsibility to grab opportunities or to find opportunities to progress. And I think sometimes we forget that, don't we?
absolutely. Every now and then we need a little push, but yeah, it is our own responsibility, and that is the way that we can move forward.
Yes, yes. And in terms of learning and development, that leads nicely on to my next question. I wanted to ask, do you have any favourite resources that have helped you in your career journey? Any sort of podcasts or books or network that you tend to look to every now and then?
Yeah, I use a lot of different things. I like to attend conferences, various HR conferences, listen to podcasts and reading books, all of those. And there are so many great books that I could recommend, but I guess one of my favorites has to be The Chimp Paradox by Steve Peters. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that
No.
at all. But oh, I love that book. I love the way it's written. I've learned so much from the book. It's all about how we behave in certain ways and how we can control that. So I would definitely recommend that. And another key help for my development was attending a personal leadership program, which was run by the Living Leader. That was such a fantastic program. It really transformational to all aspects of my life, work and also personal.
Mm.
And it was on that I really got the idea of taking responsibility for things. It also helped me tackling my limiting beliefs and things that were holding me back, and understanding the power of appreciation. And I mean, it was just a fantastic course, so I learned so much from that as well.
Amazing. Yeah, taking on board that taking responsibility for your own personal development there. I suppose as well, if you're we talk a lot on here about the power of networking, but if you have an internal networks group there, that's a great place for people to meet other like-minded people, isn't it? In terms of those that are passionate about diversity and moving things forward. I suppose it's important to pick a company that has those things available as well, isn't it? That you can talk to other people that might be feeling the same way as you. For instance, you mentioned imposter syndrome. Just hearing
Yeah.
somebody else feels exactly the same way can be so helpful.
Yeah, it's been really helpful having those networks internally for people, being able to talk to other people in the same situation and get all of that advice and support. I do recommend external networking as well, though, because it is good to broaden your horizons and broaden the information, etc., that you can get by looking outside of your own organization. And mentors, I've had various mentors throughout my career, and they've always been really useful as well. And they've they've always been outside of the organisation they've been in, and therefore they've been able to provide a really sort of different perspective on the challenges that I've been facing. Because you can
Yes.
become a little insular if you only talk to people within your own organisation. So it's quite enlightening sometimes to have chats with people outside.
Yes, exactly. Just to hear, you're right. You kind of get into that little bubble of hearing certain things, and it is eye-opening sometimes when you hear from other people. We're almost out of time, but I wanted to ask you, as a leader in tech, and obviously you have lots of experience in lots of different sectors, are there any final words of wisdom that you could share with our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me would be don't let any limiting beliefs that you may have about yourself stop you from achieving what you want. You can do it, believe in yourself, take responsibility for achieving your goals, and just go for it.
Yes, oh, I love that. Yes, limiting beliefs. How many of us have those?
I know.
I was told once you should always talk to yourself as if you're a friend, your best friend, because sometimes those conversations, that you have with your friends, you don't have them with yourself. So sometimes it's like just stopping and thinking, would I say such things to a friend of mine? What would I say? I would
Yeah.
probably be a little bit more kinder to that person, and think, actually, I'd probably say just go for it, but we don't always say that to ourselves. So.
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, thank you, Ayshea. We are out of time, so thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
No problem. It was a pleasure of mine too.
Thank you. And to everybody listening, as always, thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again next time.